Hi, welcome to this episode, Prophecy for the Last Hour. My name is Liz McGee. And again, I have a lot of meat prepared. We're going into the deep waters. We're going to do a little more unpacking of the understanding, which I'm beginning to understand better, the deeper esoteric knowledge that really was retained. Now, I have a board up here with some key things. I'm going to try to stay very linear and quick here. But I want to talk about creation, obviously, and from two texts, from two streams of information moving forward here, from Jubilees and Genesis. All right. Let me just say creation, the reason, again, I spent a lot of time trying to understand the esoteric understanding that's packed into these texts, because creation, obviously, it's your worldview. I mean, you got to start somewhere. Did the chicken come first or the egg come first? I mean, either way, you need to have an origin belief, and that kind of shapes your worldview. Okay, so obviously, I want to have a biblical one. I not only want to have a biblical one, I want to have a Hebraic one, right? I believe that Judah and our let's say our faith tradition, Christianity and Judaism together, we have kept the truth in the house. So, but with all these texts, we live in a time where so much information is being, brought into the light, and people have the opportunity to really study and meditate and try to get the origin stories from two streams. One is Jubilees, the Book of Jubilees, which was found in large numbers in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It is by a priestly text. So in other words, it is a book that has a context, it has a following, it has a group that you can track through history who really did write it and record it, keeping it, the information alive, and they had a vested interest in it. And that then you have the other side, you have our Torah. Everybody has a Bible, everybody has the Book of Genesis in which to read. Most people are familiar with Genesis, all right, in the Bible, in the Tanakh, all right, especially the 5 books of Moshiach, all right. So there is some, they don't read the same. When you read Jubilees, and I am going to start with Jubilees chapter 2, verses 1 through 31, that whole chapter, and the specific verses, actually Jubilees 1 through 3. I'll show you the whole verse in a second. But Jubilees is written by the priestly caste, all right, sect, group. Not everybody in Israel was a priest, right? So not everybody was writing the same. I don't want to get too deep into this. So basically, you have two kind of streams. We have the Torah, the Tanakh, the 5 books, and it is really called the Torah of the King. One thing is, we know Messiah. This is the point. He is king and prophet. He's king and priest. All right. So both of these are valid. They're a little different in the way they're presenting the information because they have different goals. The priestly tradition is very much steeped in trying to preserve the deeper esoteric understandings in the text, like why heaven and earth are a mirror image of each other, and why, everything that's done in heaven is done on earth, and vice versa. Why? You got to understand. So there's a lot of information that you necessarily don't need to keep the Torah. Okay, so really one is more concerned with the law, and one is more concerned, and it morphed into this concept of oral Torah. The deeper, it's called the deeper, the sod, the parts, the hidden, the mystical. Oh my gosh, I've been through this so much, all right? And largely, this is our problem, we kind of, through the age, especially Christianity, through the baby out with bathwater, we really got rid of all the mystical texts, all the apocryphal works that, were a little bit deeper, and we have this very sterile thing. Whatever. I don't want to go into all this, but most people can understand. They have the Torah, and you have this other stream, especially in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And now, having done such deep reading in the Dead Sea Scrolls, in the Zohar, in the legitimate mystical writings kept in the house of Judah, the Kabbalistic works, okay, that tradition, right, they're really the same. The theology, even though sometimes they're different words, and of course you have different groups writing them and retaining, the knowledge, the theology is identical. And I'm like, oh, this makes perfect sense, because again, Jubilees morphed into Quran, into the Essenes. They were the priestly, the Zadoks, and many that attached themselves to this movement, to this core group. All right, they were the keepers of that, all of that information. That's why within their traditions and their writings, especially with like the Clementine homilies and a lot of the literature, it will keep talking about in Ezra, you know, these books for the wise, this category of books. You know, you have the books for the king, the Torah of the king. That's why I put it up here, the Torah of the law, all right, which was for everybody. It was very sort of cut and dried, basically, you know, the Ten Commandments. This was knowledge that everybody needed, but not everybody needed to have the level of the priestly tradition. Okay, that wasn't, but when they had the temple, because the priests were doing all these ritualistic enactments of what was going on in heaven and vice versa, they were on the same calendar. I mean, it's amazing when they were on the same calendar, they were on the same cycle of the Mazra, they were on the same day of the hour, where they were worshiping and praising and enacting together. It's really crazy how much of this we don't really understand. Okay, but you have Genesis and Jubilees. All right, now I want to go into Jubilees because, number one, you get a lot more information. You have to understand about Genesis, it really is a clip note. The whole Torah, and let me say this, okay, my next thing I got to get out of the way. I believe that the Torah was originally written, well, obviously in Hebrew. Now, Hebrew is the language of the creation. It's very different. It's a glyph. I've been through a lot of this. It's a symbol. It retains tons of knowledge. There was tons of knowledge attached to every letter and to every grouping of letters, 2 letters, 3 letters, building up bigger words. Okay, this is all, if you were a Torah sage or a priest, you would know all this. So you would grow up understanding Hebrew. It's grammatia, the word equivalency, the number equivalency, and also the letters, okay? But it is a stream of consciousness. It really is a code, all right? And we are all at the mercy of the translator. So when I read a text out of Jubilees for understanding, I'm at a disadvantage because I asked myself, oh my gosh, what word in Hebrew was the word that they translated spirit? And then over here, what was the word in Hebrew that they translated soul? Because there's a lot of mix up in all this stuff. So since I can't read in the primary original language, I am at it. But I think, again, the Ruach is able to lead us in all truth. So there has to be a way around that problem. And I believe it is by reading broadly and deeply, and the Ruach will give you the information, because basically it's all a transmission of information in the sense of correct theology. So anyways, but one of the things I want to focus on today to show you, and I'm convinced that, see, the ancients had so many grammatical rules. The writings of really a lot of the worlds, but the biblical, it's very structured. It's very written according to very specific rules of transmission. Again, something we don't really understand the depth of. But one of the things in rules of logic and, you know, comparison, the way they did things, was this thing called tautology. I did a teaching on it, and I'll put it in the link, probably 2 years ago at this point, on this kind of tautology, which is we would know it best as a form of Greek rhetoric. Okay, now rhetoric doesn't have a negative connotation. It means it's the laws, so to speak, of verbal engagement, or of logic. How do you present information logically, consistently, following through? They have rules about this, and one of them is a device they use called tautology. And I'm convinced our Torah text is written primarily according to tautology. Now, tautology means it means saying the same thing twice using different words. Okay, so really, they do this constantly. And I'm going to start in Jubilees, chapter 2, verse 1. Okay, and I'll just show you tautology in here. And the angel of the presence, so that's a whole thought there. Angel of the presence, it's a spake to Moshiach. We got according to the word of the Lord, saying. Now, this is the problem. All those other prepositions, the only thing that's probably in here in Hebrew is angel of the presence, spake, Moshiach, word of the Lord. Okay, Everything else has kind of been filled in to the best that the translator can try to figure out what's being said. But if you break it down into tautology, the angel of the presence, which is saying something, the first thing, you're saying the first thing, and then you're saying the same thing the second time using different words. So you got the angel of the presence and the word of the Lord, word of Adonai. See, when you guys said, you said that the word, and Yeshua, or he is the word made flesh. See, there is a real, and my biggest thing with this is we have to start to look at these are real God. This is Elohim. All of this is Yod He Vav He. All right. So the angel of the presence and the word of Adonai, that is the same entity. If I can use that word, because entity, before creation, the same title. Really? Okay. The same office, the same title, the same functioning. All right. Now, so you have already in this verse, you have because let me say this: Jubilees, according to its own witness, its tradition, was written by angels as a witness to be kept for the priestly class. All right. So a lot of times it'll say, and we, because in this it started to throw me a bit, because the conversation your audience here, or let's say who's originally in on this, is the angel of the presence, who by tautology is the same thing as the word of Adonai. We know now that is in the angel of the presence, but it's translated a couple of the angel of the Lord. That is a pre-incarnate manifestation or whatever, or of Yeshua, of Moshiach, right? And most people don't like Bible commentaries. They all come to that conclusion. So you have the word of Adonai, and Moses are speaking, and so we know that that's sort of how they're up on the mountain. So the context we know, and this is what Genesis. Or this is what the whole story of Mount Sinai, Moshe going up. He is in the presence. We know this of the angel of the Lord. He is speaking face to face. All right. And this is where in all of this, part of my reason is because I am truly coming into understanding of the tree of life. And unless you have, as the ancients understood it, and it is the foundation of all theology, and I'm beginning to understand it, and I'm beginning to be able to put everything in its place and really follow along with these deep, the mystics. I don't know, of the Kabbalistic tradition, which is keeping alive a lot of this information, all right? So he's saying that the angel of the presence, or Adonai, the word of Adonai, spoke, saying, write the complete history of the creation, how in 6 days Adonai, Elohim, so I wish I could see in the Hebrew what they're translating Lord God, which mostly the time is Adonai Elohim, finished all his works and all that he created, and kept Sabbath on the seventh day and hallowed it for all ages and appointed it as a sign for all his works. Now, there's nothing out of order there between everything that's told us in the Tanakh, that's in the Genesis, or that's the same thing, that the information that Moshe came down the mountain with everyone. They're going to keep the Sabbath now. They had already been keeping it, but now it's carrying forward as the sign now for what's going to become the nation, his people. Okay. So they're saying, you're going to write a complete history. So what I need to say here, Moshe is not up on the mountain, number one, making this up. Moshe's not in some kind of room, comparing all other ancient texts of the world, and trying to figure out, okay, how do we synthesize all of these things? No, he is in a place of face-to-face communication and an information transfer of high stakes. This is now the correct worldview. This is the truth, because it's being presented by the word of Adonai, who we know is the truth, right? Emerit. So you can't be thinking this is faulty information. So what I want to say is, this is where Moshe is. He is on the level, you could actually say he is in the heavenly academies. he is really dialoguing and getting this information, probably getting his mind 100% straight. You know, he doesn't have any crooked thinking. He has no idolatry, no areas of his mind where because he's going to have to lead these people and establish on a sure foundation that the information that is known was known by our patriarchs, all right, by Enoch. All right, and this has to go back. Jubilees is very similar in writing style, in stream of information people from Enoch. It comes from that tradition. All right. See, we're presented with Moshe in the Tanakh sort of like all this information all of a sudden like appeared for the first time. And he's the first. And see, that's not true. Moshe was so initiated to the truth of his people, his ancestors, who we know, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, his brothers Aaron. All right, these people are righteous Siddiqs in the line of the transmission, and they're paying attention. All right. Well, let's say Moshe, after he got, had to leave Egypt, he got serious. Okay. So they're going to write the complete history of of all Yahweh's works, how he made the heavens of the earth, how he made the Sabbath as the seventh day to be kept as a sign. See, this is as a sign for all generations of this group, for in all eternity, or all the generations, right? That's why it's important for us coming back into the correct transmission stream and being together that we keep Sabbath, because it is a sign and it is one of the commandments. And hey, I don't know really how you can get around that one when you get to that level of understanding. So when I'm doing this, here, let me see, this chart, what I have written there, okay, creation, Jubilees, and Genesis. So like I wanted to establish, first of all, that they are definitely coming from different streams that have different purposes, so to speak, in presenting the information, to retain it, it's very complicated, but this is the difference between the writings for the profane and the writings for the wise. I mean, this is so established in the whole world of Hebraic sage scholarship and understanding. So I just don't really want to go into that. But what you do have, which is like I wanted to say, between Jubilees, the priest, the prophet, and Genesis, the Torah of the law, all right, the Essenes came down this line, the prophets, this is where Yeshua came from, especially in this first incarnation, because he is coming ultimately as the high priest. He is ultimately bringing back forward, oh dear, it's so deep, from heaven back down to earth, the Melchizedek priesthood, all right, which I have videos on and will continue to flesh out more, but I can't do that in this one, all right. So and then you have the Davidic kingdom, which is so interesting, because in you have the kingdom. The kingdom represents, in the tree of life, Malkut, which is the world of physicality. It all makes sense. It's all very logical. Everything fits very neatly where it is put. But the thing of the king, he was why I call it the Torah of the king. It was really written for the king, that part, the Torah, the Tanakh, like that. And he was supposed to, and I don't know if I have this right, he was supposed to write it, the whole Torah, the whole Tanakh, once in his kingship, I think, or maybe once every 7 years. But he was also to read it aloud every year, I believe, something like that. I mean, he was supposed to live, eat, breathe, sleep, Torah. All right, so he could lead the people. I mean, that's why Solomon was able to lead the people. He had great wisdom. He was that's the wisest man that ever lived. Complete. All right. So one of the things that's totally established that is in all, no distinction between Genesis and Jubilees, first of all, is, okay, it is how the heavens, for the first day, he created the heavens which are above, and the earth and the waters and the spirits which serve him below. All right, so in other words, in Genesis, it just says in the beginning, he created the heavens and the earth. All right, but now in Jubilees, there's so much more information. And this is what trips people up, because they start reading and go, I never heard of this stuff before. What are these people talking about? Okay? Yet is the language that's all over the apocalyptic, pseudographic, Zoharic Dead Sea Scrolls writings. The more, this is where they take the parabolic language and they flush it out. So this is what I want to try to bring into the light so people can have an understanding. So we have on the first day, we know Genesis is broken down into 6 days. So again, it follows the same pattern as Genesis, but on the first day he created the heavens, which are above, and the waters, and the earth and the waters and all the spirits. Now you just have to look at these. These are like code. You have earth, you have waters, and you have spirits. And I'd love in the Hebrew to know what those words were. But then it goes down, and if you were able to, and I did this, I went through it and I kind of charted it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I get this now. But it says, so we're going to break it down. It says the angels of the presence. Because first of all, I just want to bring your attention in the first verse above, in verse 2, I believe it is, he says, on the first day when he created the heavens, which are above, and the earth and the waters and all the spirits. So what you have initially here when you're in, is this is why physics, or why, how do I say this? I love this part because it is it's not trying just to be esoteric head knowledge. It's actually true physics. This is the physics of this, of the earthly world, the world of us, and all the heavenlies. And they make no bones when you understand what they're saying. They're all over the place. All right. In secular understanding, they want you to think there's only the world of physicality. That's all there is. And when you die and go to dust, boom, that's it. There's no soul in man. There's no other places out there you can go. And okay, that is the dumbest worldview. And that is, it's always been around. But I will tell you, this is where Satan, people think, okay, Satan, you can say Satan's one, God is dead. Nobody had that worldview. Everyone believed. I mean, they were all over gods. Everybody had gods. This is no, Israel had a relationship with the high God, the king, the high Elohim, the most high, all right? But then everybody else, the gods of the nations. I mean, and so what we have to do is understand what are they talking about when they use the word gods, all right? So, and angels. And today you can understand, I understand in the world of physics, they are really talking about how the cosmos is broken down into two categories of creation, of intelligence. You have forces and you have matter. You have soul and you have body, flesh, basar. You have heaven and you have earth. That is, you have the left and the right, as I'm going to show. That is the primary breakdown of everything, all right? But then they subcategory. There's so many other categories. So when you get into this world of spirits, then it gets into what? The angels of the presence. All right, that's the first class of angels that is mentioned, all right? Now, let me just say this. In the very first verse, it said, and the angel of the presence spake to Moshe. All right, so we have established there is it's like this is the archangel, this is the head, this is the high, you can't get any higher in rank than this one angel of the presence. But then it goes down here to talk about there are angels of the presence. So this is why the idea of an army and rank and, generals and sergeants and then the foot soldiers, this kind of works. Because this is a true picture of what's going on in the heavenly realms, okay? We know that there's different levels of angels, even on the other side. Satan has angels, and then we know from the writings that there are different levels. He's the high, he'd be the high head angel, and there are lesser angels that do his bidding, okay? So the angels of the presence, then the angels of sanctification. And this, I want to make a note, I'm not going to go there, but if you go down in the chapter, everybody should just read this chapter. It's 31 verses, Jubilees 1, or Jubilees 2, 1 through 31. It talks about the angels of the presence and the angels of sanctification. It repeats that, and it talks about them, and then it says, these two great classes. See, again, they knew that these are different classes, these are different angelic orders, but the top ones, the angels of the presence and angels of sanctification. Now, the angels of the spirit of fire, all right, and the angels of the spirit of the winds. Okay, now let's start there. See, and these are words, this is all Enochian wordage, all right? Enoch is all over this, and he tells you more information. And where are they in the north and the south? There's a lot of information. There are 4 types of angels here. If you got presence, sanctification, fire, and winds. Now, the reason I bring that out is because the word fire, let me just say this, and the angels of the spirit of fire. Now, it's in brackets, so which means I believe that the translator, they inserted that word. It was blank. They didn't have it. It wasn't really in the original, whatever text they were working from. But the best word you could put there for it would be fire, which I would agree with here, because you have 4 things: presence, sanctification, fire, and wind. This represents, again, the 4 highest classifications of the 4 worlds in which different angelic orders live. This is a very established understanding. So this is why it goes on in other literature, and they will talk about Gog and Magog. Here comes an angelic. See, these are rulers, but he's not talking about earthly rulers. This is what we don't understand. It's talking about the head angel. Remember, there's 70 gods over the nations. Every angel, there are ruling angels. We see this information, we know. So what I wanted to say, the angels of the spirit of fire, they have a geographic location. Angels of the winds. See, when you break this thing down, they operate. Fire is its own dimension. These angels live in a dimension where fire, remember, in Yeshua said, I see Satan coming down as lightning. We'll get down to this, things that are associated with fire, all right? Lightning, obviously. Plasma would be its main word. So they're very consistent. Once you get the concept, the prophets and the writers are very consistent on how it's being applied. So, but these are the 4 worlds, and it is my guess, fire is the left side. This I know for a fact. Winds, angels of the winds are on the right side, and this has said, this is Gevir, this is the left and the right side, which I have in the chart here, all right? And we're going to get into that. I don't know how much time I'm going to have to take to do all this, and I'll break it down into a couple sessions. So hope you want to just stick through this. So you have always, because we know that the text talk about this concept of a right hand and a left hand, the right pillar, the left pillar, the middle pillar. They're talking about something. They're classifying things, and this is what they're doing. Now, then you go into, and then there's the angels of the spirits of the clouds. And again, I would like to we'd love to know what these words are in the Hebrew, but again, angels, spirits of the cloud. It's probably redundant, all right, because you do have angels of the clouds. He will come with the clouds of heaven. That is an angelic order, and heaven, clouds are in heaven. Okay, so this is the realm we're in, obviously, okay? That he comes with the cloud. There's 2 ways of looking at it. He comes with the angels that are literally, but from that dominion of air, they're clouds of, they're clouds, but they're in the domain principality of air, all right? But the point is, we also, when you understand, I shouldn't even throw this in, we are part of Shekinah, part of all Israel, part of the marriage supper of the Lamb. These analogies are talking, there's a group of souls that are in the cloud category. I don't know, I shouldn't even go there, because the assembly of Israel, the saints that are called up yonder, that is who we are initially. We are going to ascend, we are immediately first going to ascend to the level of the clouds with those angels probably, and they are going to escort us up. I mean, that actually makes a lot of sense, because in most of all these visionary, ecstatic, mystical experience the prophets had, where they go somewhere, 9%, they have angelic escorts. So it would make sense that these, because same thing, Yeshua ascended in a cloud. Angels, so yeah, that would make sense to me. These are the initial group that will meet you as you're exiting the world, exiting planet Earth. clouds, right? The very next phenomena you come to, that's how logical, that will escort you up to the higher dimensions, higher domains. Does that make sense? Makes perfect sense to me. Okay, now there's 4 things that are listed here, and of darkness, and of snow, and of hail, and of hoarfrost. Okay, now they're in Enoch, and everybody's like, okay, what's hoarfrost? What is all this stuff? Okay, but before I go there, in principle, again, it doesn't say they're angels. This is my guess again, the way tautology works, they're saying basically these same 4 classifications of angels, they're saying them again according to darkness and snow, hail, and hoarfrost. Those, okay, I know where darkness fits. That's the left side. We're going to show you that in snow, and I didn't have time to, I don't know where those are or really yet what those are referencing. All right, but my guess it has to be, we're talking about the clouds, the winds, darkness would be the fire. All right. And the angels, now we go into other kinds of angels, angels of the voices. Isn't it talked about in a lot of the scriptures, you know, because we know that the angel will sound the trumpet. Well, that's a kind of more poetic picture to see an angel blowing a real trumpet. Now that's probably, but angels of the voices, they do speak and it causes vibrations. That vibration goes into many dimensions. This is one of the, it's all vibration. It's light and it's vibration. It's sound and it's light. So when there's these angels and their voices, these are probably communicate that telegraph all the way, so to speak, up and down in the heavens with information. Angels of the thunder, all right? Angels of the lightning. Again, these are categories. Now, let me say this overarchingly. What I've come to understand, this is the elementals. This is talking about, how do I say this? There is a correspondence to all of this to natural phenomena we here on the earth. We all experience snow, hail, thunder, lightning. We're going to get more to heat and cold, clouds, all this stuff, all right? There's always, again, everything follows the same pattern, so there will be a correspondence in an earthly plane, but don't for a minute think that that's as deep as this whole situation or this whole imagery goes, all right? No, because clouds, eventually air becomes breath when Yahweh blew, which is a whole highest category of anything that's in the air. It's even above air as you get deeper into this. So these are all portraying, so what people, I guess my thing is people, yeah, it's always been the mystics, it's always been the sages, those who would go deeper, who have always understood these words having deeper levels of application in other dimensions. So it's coming, is really understanding we need to get back, as we get back to the ancient past, that's the whole point. We're going to get back to having these deeper level understandings. All right. So we're going to be able to keep up. All right. So we have here angels of the thunder, angels of the lightning, angels of the spirits of cold. There's a whole, see, these are all broken down into 4s, a lot of these. Now listen, we have angels of cold, of heat, of winter, and spring. All right. That's the season. That's the cycle. That's the whole Geulah. That's the whole Mazareth progression. That's in one way of saying it. We have everything is either cold or winter, heat and summer. So you have cold and heat, winter and, okay, hold on a second here. We've got cold and heat. Okay, so the contrast, cold and heat, broken down into the 4 seasons of winter, spring, autumn, and summer. I mean, they are giving you so much information, but one of the things is, and this is what got pagan in the ancient world, so many times the other nations who serve the gods over those nations who are really, they're lower than Yad-Heh, all right? They're his deputies, his sergeants. They do his work in keeping the cosmos running and in overseeing sections of the people. You know, this is, yeah. But what I want to say is this understanding, understanding the Mazarov, this has to do with why the ancients understood astronomy, because they understood the heavens, they understood where everything was and what everything was doing. So with the sun, moon, and the stars, they knew that was in the fourth heaven and its role to play. And they tracked with it. All right. And this is why I think that the solstices were so important. They had the way they kept track of time. I mean, today we don't need a solstice, right? I mean, we got these we live on electronics that run our day and night for us. So what do I, just as long as I know the day and the time and the year, okay, and I know it all electronically. I don't know it as an angel who really actually had much closer relationship with the drama of it really being played out in nature. But again, back to the pagans, they interacted with these lower level angelic entities that are right here on the surface. There's so much right beyond our radar. I mean, there's angelic orders of forces, of energies, of living souls that are doing things to keep the cosmos running. And that's a lot of times what the pagans were trying to interact with, trying to appease, trying to, give it offerings so that you can get favor from the wind god, for your crops. I mean, in one sense, that's what they were doing. And it's just a huge subject, some of the relationships between the angelic orders and mankind, some of it good, some of it bad. It's pretty crazy. And then you had Israel developing. First you had Enoch, you had the priesthood, you had a holy remnant, all right? Then it morphed into the nation, right? And then it morphed into two houses. And then, you guys, it's morphed into now two opposite, whoever thinks it can be reconciled, Christianity and the Jews, and yet it really is one thing, and it is going to come back together, and it is going to come back together on a dime rather quickly. But those are all of the teachings. What we want to do is see these angels correctly, biblically, take all the weirdness out of it, all the fear out of it, all of the bad press out of it. Just understand what's being talked about. And we do the exact same thing today when we teach. Everybody teaches, people study the seasons, people study weather phenomena, they study the heavens, they just don't call it the same thing, and they just don't tell you, or they don't believe this is all really part of Elohim and his creation and how he runs it and who he uses to run it where. All right, so angels of summer was the last one. Then if you go down to now I think it was in chapter 15. Actually, I'm not sure where this is. Well, anyway, just let me do this. So this is all day one. Okay, this is the first day. Day one. He created the heavens and the earth, and then we'll break down to you. Heavens is a whole, when you understand the tree of life, the heavens and the earth, what it's talking about here. And this is why, and it makes perfect sense, that Moshe would be in dialogue with the angel of the presence, or the word of the Lord, which is Adonai, which is with truth, right? The same, we're talking about the same Mashiach, the same king. So this is who he is. He is the king over what is called Hebraically, Zoharically, Zer Anpin. And what they're telling you is everything that's in this purvey of this, under the angel of the presence, this is the lower seven separate, the lower seven on the tree of life. This is where they get their whole concept of their correspondences of the days of the week, the planets, metals. There's so many things they attach to seven, which is in itself a picture of all of the cosmos, and it's the lower seven sephirific parts, even on a tree. So it's starts like 2/3 down on the tree if you were going to actually be describing it. The thing to understand is Yahweh, Vavhe, he is the king over, because of what Yeshua said, the Moshiach said, the Father is greater than I, and everything that the Father does, I do. That's the truest statement in the world, because they are in complete unity. They're built, they're wired, they operate, they have no dark, there's not even an option of, they work in complete unity and harmony. This is such an important principle. So this compares with Genesis. If we went over to Genesis chapter 1 in verses, this information is in verses 3 and 5, and this is what we get. We get, and Elohim said, let there be light, and there was light. And seeing that the light was good, Elohim separated the light from the darkness. So Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. This is what we're beginning to get our breakdown. All right, we have a separation. This was, and then on the second day, he made this separate, and he made a firmament. He put something in the middle between these two. There's so much deep information. And there was evening and there was morning, and that's the first day. So that was Genesis. And basically what Genesis really does, it's all dark. You can see where it's not as flushed out, all the care. It doesn't have to talk about the spirits. It doesn't talk about the waters. It just says in the heaven and the earth he created, he separated the light from the darkness, and he called it evening and morning. That was the first day. Now, it's absolutely accurate, but it's like, okay, let's simplify the whole thing now, so we can tell it basically to, middle schoolers or to kindergartners. It's very, very cut and dried, very graphically and in every way simplified down. Whereas now when we go into Jubilees, let me go back to Jubilees, all right? Because in Jubilees, he talks about day and night from comparing Genesis information and in Jubilees. Then it goes on and says, and he, Yahweh, created, here we have the abysses, the darkness, eventide, and night, all right? And this is the light, dawn, and day. Now, this is why I put this chart up here, because see, this is the beginning. This is such a breakdown that is going on that it's that we just don't really understand. You have when he said that he separated, okay, I'm going to end with this. Let's see. He separated the heavens from the earth. All right, let me skip down to this verse. Let me go to Jubilees 2:4, because this is what's important. On the second day, he created the firmament in the midst of the waters. All right, remember, everything was water. Then he separated. Well, you see, now he separates, which is the light from the darkness, which is really, you'll see in other words, the separation of the light and the darkness, the waters above and the waters below. So on the second day, he created a firmament in the midst of the waters, and the waters were divided on that day. Half of them went up above. So where is above? It has to be in the heavens. And half of them went down below the firmament. So now they're under the firmament. And that was in the midst over the faces. So in other words, half of these waters, and waters also is a code word for ethereal souls and spirits that are not bodily, all right, manifesting in the earth. Okay, there's a separation. So half of them go above this firmament, half of them go below. This is where you have your automatic dichotomy. So it's this way, above and below. And in the middle you have the firmament. And the middle is where he put the sun, moon, and the stars and all the other heavens. But we have waters above and waters below. But this is really talking about, there's real physics here. And it's really talking about a separation also, because who runs it? He has angels who run the cosmos, and he has the Adamic souls. We're part of that. We're in that progression. We were put in the heavens. We originally had to rule over all of these dominions and dimensions and entities, right? Okay. So it's very important to have that mind picture, because the word firmament, this is kind of sad, this idea of the firmament being hard. Again, I wish I knew what the Hebrew word was. I wish I could go look at the letters. I wish I could try to wrap my mind more Hebraically around it. And is that a correct word? But the word is translated really vault. Vault, an expanse is what we're told. It's an expanse, it's a vault, and he put something in between. All right, and this is huge to the storyline, but I'm not even going to go there in this one. But so when he separated the heavens and the earth, And this he did on the 4th day. And then he placed the sun, the moon, and then he made the sun, moon, the stars. He placed them in the middle there. And most people understand this is the dimension of time, all right? Because now we had an issue. And okay, so let me go back here to this. But what I want to bring attention for people to is, okay, the left side and the right side. This is so fundamental. Again, understanding he called the right. This is the information in Jubilees. And if you understand correctly what they're doing, what they're portraying, Yahweh created the abysses in darkness, evening time, and night. Those are 4 words, and there's many others that get attached to it. That represents the left side. It's called darkness. It's called night. It on the sephirithic tree, it is the left side, and you have up there, you know, starting with Bina, Gevera, and Hod, which flow into Yesod and Malkut. But the point is, there is this left side. All right. This is, and then a lot of times they'll, in another poetic way, they'll call it the left hand, and it does things. You'll always notice that. Then there's the right side. On the right side is the light, the day. It isn't really, because this is all something that Yahweh created. It isn't that the left side is bad and the right side is good. In the left side is where the problem virus, or the problem in the whole thing, initiated, and through damage control has sort of been kept there, kind of like containment. All right, and this is, again, gets into a lot of deeper stuff there. But the point I want to make is that in Jubilees, that the author, the communication between the angel of the presence and Moshe, in correctly disseminating in the presence of the angels, which is also indicated in the text. To me, so you see in the Holy Academy, again, this is where they get these concepts, whether they're mentally, you know, again, and this is the thing where Moshe says, or Paul echoes this, like, hey, whether in the body or out of the body, I don't know. I don't know. But the point is, this level of mental understanding is absolutely going on. All right. So there, now let me just finish these verses. So he says he created the abysses, which is, again, this is the hell. This is what is Sheol or Tartarus or hell, or the waters below, the deep. There's a part where the 2 sea creatures, see, so there's a whole theology attached to that. All right. Now, then it says, all of these things which he hath prepared in the knowledge of his heart. See, and this is that when you understand the tree of life and separatively where they are, that he, Yahweh, prepared all this. See, we were known in the foreknowledge of every Elohim, in the knowledge of his heart, which actually, to me, again, a better translation was in the knowledge of his mind. This is his, still in his mind. This is what he is doing. He is moving everything into place, where it's going to go, and this is it. And then we're going to start, like, you know, hit the on button, and we're going to start with time, you know, and we're going to go through these cycles and all this. But that's another whole part of this story. But the point to make is that this was all in his mind. He separated the light and the darkness, but what those things represent, these are dimensional places inhabited with dimensionally adequate, or how would be the word, dimensionally fitted vessels, or life living souls, all right, or angels. Okay, this is what is going on. So, and they can't necessarily, this all knowledge, they can't all, you know, an angelic, a force that is, or an entity that is created to live, quote unquote, in the waters, in the lower waters, let's say in the seas. So then you have the waters, but then it gets more when you get down to the earth, and then he drained off, and this is one of the, all of the waters, then all the waters that were below had to be drained away so that the earth, the dry land, could appear, which has on many levels is absolute basic farming, basic building blocks of life. You got to have, you know, absolutely. But in the seas, rivers, lakes. This is when the information, Enoch goes on, he breaks it down. So if you take waters down below, they're on the earth, you got to drain them all off the earth, and all of a sudden you get oceans, rivers, lakes, streams, whatever, the whole. And I mean, hey, these sages take this a whole step further, because that's how they superimpose this whole thing on the human body. We are made in Yahweh's image and likeness, his body in the sense of the cosmos. So this is where they get the concept of, oh my gosh, the blood vessels and the veins and the arteries. I mean, it all fits. Even in our bodies, there are lakes, there are places where pools, different things. So I'm telling you, it blows me away once you get the basic template, how over and over and over, consistently and accurately. And this is how you are able to know the spirit of error versus the spirit of truth. You've got to have the correct template. Now, let me just end with this, because what I want to say is, I have to go back to this, which I made one time, and maybe the graphics, in graphics I can do this. There is, when you graph out, oh dear, it's just not showing up. When you graph out the tribes on a two-dimensional plane, the way they were camped around, remember, the Levites in the middle, and then you had the tribes, by 3 tribes at the north, 3 tribes at the east. Okay, they were doing a correspondence. They were literally camping out on earth as it is in heaven, as a picture. If you took, now look, I'm an artist. I paint on a 2-dimensional surface. All right, I can't get 3 dimensions on my paper. It's 2 dimensions, and I have to do the best I can to try to depict what is really there, because 3 dimensions is there, actually, and on a 2-dimensional surface. All right, but that's what that, and it's a cross, and many people have seen. When you include all the directions, like I was saying, this is how they do it. You have east, west, north, and south. You have to add into that. You have to, above and below. That's what 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what gives us 6 dimensions. That's what gives us what is called the cube. This is why in Kabbalistic literature, you'll especially in more of the occult things, or this is what people that they just don't understand what information is being transferred. What we're talking about is how, this is why in the ancients, in the Greeks, and they're so into the different geometric shapes, the tetrahedron, the octagon, I mean, all these different shapes, and a 7-sided cube, all these different things, all right? Because this thing is so complex made, but in the simplest level, everything in our Bible is coded also by location, north, south, east, and west. But what we forget is above and below. And when you put that, I labeled each one of these. So this part of the thing is above. All right. So what I'm trying to say is, when you take that 2-dimensional map that you can make, because the above and below, let me just tell you, if you add the angel of a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, we know those are angelic orders, and they have a location. A cloud, a pillar of fire at night. All right, because night, those angels will, in the darkness, they shine. They're protections. That's telling you that they have. Oh, that's why, and they are above. All right, because a pillar of fire above, and a cloud by day. That cloud traveled in front of them. It's basically telling you where the angelic order is that's following around Israel. But you always have an above and a below. Remember, he separated the waters, so the water's above and the water's below. But in those waters, there are categories of things. So you have to keep it all very straight. It's very logical and linear. But anyways, if you start with above always being up above, this could straighten out so much of our biblical understanding, because dimensionally, it gives you, we live in the 2 dimensions of north, south, east, and west. That'll give you on a flat plane. But you can't get above and below on that flat plane. That's the three-dimensional thing, but it's still there. So that's what's going on with this, all right? And it's important information. This is why, because it's my pet peeve, you know, all of this information that is really being repackaged, because there's nothing new under the sun. You can't do anything against the truth except repackage it and try to get people to buy into it or into a worldview that, you know, because people are smart, they're going to figure it out, but it just all comes under who is the originator of your creation myth. All right, like I said, let's go back to that. Creation, you have Jubilees and you have Genesis. You know, Genesis, in the beginning, God, Elohim created the heaven. There's no discussion. That's the category we're talking about. In Jubilees, it's going to give you so much more information, priestly information about, because their job was to coordinate with ritualistically, with the temple, with everything they did, with these angels. This is part of the whole cycle of being a priest, that you are in one accord, that you are working. This is Ezekiel's wills. I have to end here, but you can see they are working with the cycles that are established, are real in the heavens, with the angelic orders that are obviously still in alignment and harmony with Yahweh, and being faithful stewards. So we need to be faithful stewards also. So I hope that blessed you. I'd love some feedback. And do subscribe. I'm going to continue down this path to try to make sense of the esoteric understandings in a way that hopefully will help people get past their blindness, their fears, and it's just stubbornness to a large extent. Shalom, and may Yahweh's face continue to shine upon you.